Hello, I am John Pertzborn. And I am here today because I have nowhere else to go.
Just sitting around?
And wait for people like Jeff to contact me and say, hey, dude, do you want to do a podcast? And I'm like, yes, thanks for asking. I've got nothing else to do.
We're happy to have you here on the Pondcast. For those of you who recognize that voice, it is funny because I did call you, and the minute you answered, I'm like, oh, there's that distinguishable voice that everybody's heard if you grew up in the St. Louis area. John, you started on TV in 1998, I believe. Let's see, that was during what, World War II, right?
World War I.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So I started in broadcasting in 1981.
Wow.
So this was in Wisconsin. It was radio. And I was so excited to get this job at WIBA Radio in Madison, Wisconsin. And I thought, man, I must be good. And my father was a plumbing contractor. And years later, I found out because he was an advertiser on the station, he made a phone call and he said, hey, give my kid a job. He wants to get into broadcasting. So I get this call and I'm like, man, they must have heard about me. And I was doing the news. And years later, he told me that. It really, my father's deceased. My parents are gone. And that's really kind of a sweet spot for me, thinking back on that. You know, because when you're a kid, you don't think much about your parents. You're thinking about yourself. It's a hedonistic lifestyle. And when you're going to college and it's all about you. And here he was looking out for one of his kids. And I think that's real special.
Yeah, that's great. And so when I was reading a lot about you when you decided to retire, which was late 2025, you originally considered starting in aviation, correct?
Yeah. So when I was, I think it was on my 16th birthday, my father gave me for my birthday flying lessons. And I'm like, I don't even have my driver's license yet, Dad. And he goes, no, your older brother, I offered this to him years ago. He didn't want it. Your sisters didn't want it. I always wanted to fly. So I'm hoping you'll be the last resort here. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. So I took flying lessons and got my private pilot's license in 1986. And I thought, this is it. I want to go into the military. I mean, I want to go into flying. And at the time, my dad just said, hey, we don't have the money for that. I planted the seed. Now it's up to you. And the only avenue at that time was military. And I went into ROTC, Air Force, and I just wasn't a good fit for that.
Yeah.
I wasn't really, my hair was starting to grow, and they kept telling me to cut my hair, shave my beard. And it was kind of a difficult, authoritative situation I ran into. So I didn't sign the papers and decided, when I can afford to fly again, I will do so. But, you know, as time goes on, you do it fewer times. So I haven't really stayed current with it. But I did want to eventually go into aviation. And I told one of my commanding officers in ROTC, he goes, why do you want to get into this man's Air Force? And I said, well, sir, eventually I want to fly for an airline. And he just starts screaming at me.
Oh, God.
We are not spending the taxpayers' money so that you can go out there and eventually fly civilian. We want you to be a career aviator. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I was getting into this because I thought you guys would pay the bills. And so the military and John didn't mesh real well back then.
No, it doesn't sound like it. That's a pretty crazy story. But I guess you think about it. I mean, thank you to that commander who said that, because it's like, if you're going to do this, you're going to do this for America. You're not going to do this for commercial airliners.
Yeah. And also at that time, he told me before we even got into this whole conversation, he says, you want to fly for the Air Force? I said, well, yeah, I've already got my pilot's license. he goes, well, what do you want to fly? And I said, well, transport, sir, which are the big planes that carry stuff. And he goes, why transport? Everybody else wants to be a fighter pilot. And that's when the conversation trans.
Yeah.
And also he told me I had my major was not right for the Air Force. I was in comm arts at the time.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right for the Air Force.
You need to get into engineering. So who knows? I'd be flying sorties over Iran today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure you're much happier where you're at right now in your cozy living room.
Yeah. Kind of boring though until you called, Jeff.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad I can provide you some entertainment. That's usually what I'm good at.
That you have a game we're going to play.
Yes, a little bit. Yeah, it's a topic generator, so I'm actually gonna
That's coming up now or a little bit later.
we can do it right now. Let's do it. We've done so I have recorded a few times before you, and we've had some really interesting ones. We've also had some ones that I'm like, oh boy, how is this going to be a conversation for 40 minutes? But we've always seemed to make it work. So you seem like a guy that could talk like me. So I think the two of us are going to make this work.
I can tell you right now that in my career as a news anchor, I would love it when the teleprompter would go down. I would love it when everything was going wrong, because then I could just fly by the seat of my pants, And so, yeah, you're right. You and I have that in common.
Yes. All right. Well, here we go. Let's see what can go wrong with this here. So here we go. Our topic is superstitions. Okay. So as a man who's worked in news, and again, you've been doing it since 98 here in the St. Louis area at least, and 43 years, did you have any kind of weird superstitions about before you'd get on air or before you'd start, sit in the chair for makeup, anything like that?
I didn't. In fact, I did so many stories on triskaidekaphobia, which is the fear of the number 13.
Mhm.
There were it always goes back to the Last Supper. There were 13 at the Last Supper, and so they say that's where, and Christ was crucified. So that's where they say that the 13 is bad luck. So, through many years, people were afraid of certain things, namely the number 13, and that's where the fear of the number 13 comes from. Triskaidekaphobia, and because of that, I tried not to be superstitious, but I did follow routines. And if I got out of that routine in the morning when I was getting ready for work, I would sometimes think, oh my gosh, things are going to go bad. So yeah, maybe I am superstitious, but I didn't want to call it that.
Yeah.
I have some pride. But I
Well,
always,
what's the Office line from Michael Scott? He said he's not superstitious, just a little stitious, right?
I love that show. Yeah.
It's a great show. Yeah, I mean, I'll admit I have got a ton of superstitions. So don't know if you can tell from the crazy background behind me, but I'm kind of a hockey fan.
Okay.
And sports players are typically very superstitious. And so I grew up in on the hockey rink, and I'll tell you the biggest one, and this is one I do not share with my teammates, so I'm hoping none of them are listening. I do have one superstition that I have followed since I was about 12 years old. Um, I cannot be the first person on the rink. So if we're getting ready to enter the rink, I typically am the one who will open the door on purpose. So that way somebody else will go out.
So Jeff did
And
you at one time when you were the first person out on the rink.
so this was when I was 16. So I'd already had this superstition. There was one time I did. I went out, I was the first one on, and I thought, oh no. And I'm like, I'll be fine. Broke my ankle. And
No,
that is a true story. Yep.
you can't skate with a broken ankle.
No, I sure tried, but yeah, you can't skate with a broken ankle. So I got off the rink, and the first thing that I said out loud was, I'm like, MFer. I was the first one on the rink. And so now I'm like, I just won't even play. It hasn't happened since, but if it were to, I would just be like, okay, guys, I'm not playing. And I'd take all my stuff off and I'd leave.
Do you know any of the Blues players?
Yes, I've met a few of them.
Okay, when they won the Stanley Cup, what was that? How many years ago? 6 years now? 5, 6, 7. You remember the song?
Of course, Gloria.
And who would think? Now, my son tells me, "Hey, Dad, our generation would like the older music," but I thought this is dated. Why do they keep playing that old song? Is the singer even alive? And hell, they went on to win the Stanley Cup.
Yep. Yep.
So,
That was Laura Branigan was the singer. And yeah, that was and it's the superstition that I know a lot of hockey players have, that when they win, they have to play a certain song. And for the Blues, it was Gloria. And look at that. They ended up winning 16 games in the playoffs and won the Stanley Cup. So some they'll tell you as the superstition works, but I think a lot of people would say that's a little crazy.
but you can't say that hockey players have more superstitions than baseball players. They have serious superstitions.
Yes. Yeah. So I know that there's been guys who, I can't remember who that was, but there was a baseball player who, I think he was a Met, and he was a relief pitcher, and he literally had to do the exact same thing throughout the day if he thought there was a chance he was going to pitch that day. And if he didn't want to go to the mound. And I thought, man, you're making millions of dollars. You better be able to be ready to take that mound.
Well, and he would, if he didn't follow that routine, he would second guess himself, and that would throw off the mojo. And namely,
Exactly.
the reason superstitions work against people, because if it's all up here, in my opinion, it's up there.
So you mentioned
You remember back when we were burning sage? Was that for the Rams?
that was, yes, I believe that was for the Rams. Yes, back in 99 or 2000, I believe.
Right. And we
Crazy.
boxed too with Timmy Zell. We started crushing things. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I do.
Bring in the big what did they call those big machines? Concrete crushers, and we would put pictures of Enos down, and we'd put various things of whatever team we were playing, and we would crush those. And we at Fox 2 claimed that we were responsible for the Rams winning streak because of that, or at least Timmy Zell claimed that. I'm not going to get involved in that.
Well, you were. I'll tell you right now, you were. So there you go. So how about anybody else that you've worked with? Any kind of, and you don't have to name names, but like you mentioned routines, maybe it's more of a routine thing, but what's one of the, kind of maybe weirder routines or superstitions you've experienced from other people?
Ty Hawkins, who is currently anchoring at Fox, he's got a lot of weird ticks that way. We'd walk into the studio, and if the female, it's usually a man and a woman working together. If the woman calls in sick or isn't there, and the two guys have to work together, Ty insisted on sitting on the stage left chair where I normally sit, and he'd say, "Hey, I'm going to sit there today." And I go, "Hey, whatever makes you feel important, man. It doesn't make a difference to me." But he'd have to sit there because that's where he normally sat.
Interesting.
And it's a little different when you go to the other chair. I mean, you just look at a different camera. But and I thought, well, does he have a zit he doesn't want people to see, or what? It made him uncomfortable to sit in the other chair.
You got to get the good side, right? I mean, that's why my camera's pointed this way, because it's getting more of this side.
Looks and vanity, I think it was up in his head. I have to sit in that chair. And I said, well, do you think that's like the power chair? He goes, no, that's just where I normally sit. And so I thought, well, I'm going to have some fun with this. So we would sit there, and Ty's a big dude. I mean, he's tall. He's like 6'5" or something. You don't know it on television, but he is. And he's long-waisted. Randy Naughton is long-waisted. I'm short-waisted. These are all things you don't think about. But when you sit in the anchor chair and you're short-waisted and you're sitting next to somebody who's long-waisted and you're even taller than the long-waisted person, you look smaller. And it creates a weird effect. That's the only thing that bothered me. So when I would work with Ty, he would be like this massive dude sitting next to me. And I look like this little man. And so my credibility is disappearing because I'm shrinking next to this giant, So I said, dude, just bring your chair down a little bit. You know, you got a little toggle here on the side. Bring it down so we're at least at the same level. At least he goes, no. Then I look like I'm at an ice cream parlor at the front counter. Ridiculous. All right, I tell you what. So I go in and the next day I brought in a pillow that my wife had thrown out, and it was the ugliest damn pillow, real thick. And I would sit in that, and it would raise me up. We call it the butt pillow. He worked with Ty. They had to sit in the butt pillow. And when I retired, I took that pillow with me, and I threw it in the trash. But now when you watch, look at Margie. She's like right here, and he's way up here. She looks like a little person.
I'm going to pay attention to that now, and that is a hilarious inside story.
Yeah. I think he's a superstitious guy. He has to sit in the same chair. He refuses to lower the chair down because he has to have it at a certain height. To me, that's being superstitious.
That's a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I can see that, that it's got to be the same way every time. If it's different, like you said, it kind of probably gets in his head and he's like, I'm going to have a horrible show today. And because he's thinking that, he's probably going to have a bad show. So, yeah, I can see that being a part of it for sure.
Here's another one. The late John Albel.
Oh, yeah. John was great. He was doing, gosh, he did TV for 45 years.
Yeah, I think he started in the early 60s. And he and Dick Ford, when they were at KSDK, back then KSD TV, they did called Newsbeat. And that was in the 70s. And it was replaced by PM Magazine, which was a hot show for a short time. But Albel was interesting because he had a little bit of, he was a superstitious guy. He, if you ever go back and look at, maybe you can find it on YouTube, he never had his tie fully knotted up here at the top. It was always down. And I asked him one day, I said, what was that? And he goes, makes me feel comfortable. It's a tribute to Frank Sinatra.
Interesting.
Yeah. I always thought that was unique.
That's very cool.
And when they tossed to him live in the field, he'd always go, remember that?
Yes.
that became his signature. It was kind of like Rocky Man's fox. A lot of people are talking about Tourette's syndrome right now. It's in the news. And people used to come up to me and go, why does Rocky do that? That fox, 2 News. And I said, I don't know. Finally, I realized that wasn't really getting through to people. So I just said, he's got Tourette's. Oh, bad. I never told Rocky that, but I'm tired of people asking me. I don't know. I'm not the guy.
I will say that is something my dad and I used to sit there and watch the news, and then you cut over to Rocky Madden, and my dad would look at me and just go, Fox 2 News. And I'm like, yep, that's him.
And then there's the Chris Renier. Chris Renier. It's like he left the window open or there's air coming out of a tire. He also would do, good morning, so-and-so. Good morning to you as well. And one day this lady says, why does he always say that? Every day it's the same damn thing. I said, I don't know. Why are you asking? Why would people always come to me? Maybe because I'm approachable. But I didn't have the answers. So they would leave disappointed. I didn't know why he was doing that. But I think perhaps, I'll tell you this now, because I've had a lot of time to think about this since I retired in October. I think it's kind of an ode to Rocky. I think he saw Rocky with that success of Fox 2 News, and he added that Chris Renier. Just as a, I want to be like Rocky a little bit. I want something that stays with people, and maybe someday there'll be a podcast and people will be talking about it.
Yeah, that's true. There could be a podcast with random conversations and this will come up, and it certainly did.
Right.
That's hilarious.
Else? Dick Ford. Dick was a real stickler. I used to, when I'd write scripts sometimes at Channel 5 when we worked there, I would sometimes, I don't know if I was dyslexic or what, but I'd say east in the script instead of west. And and Dick would read my script cold, and then he'd realize it was wrong. And after the newscast, he'd come up to me and say, Pertzborn, you did it to me again. And he'd walk away. And I was just like, oh my God, I made the old guy mad. Damn it. So I really worked hard at that. I didn't want to screw up anymore. I had to be.
Oh,
I had
I've heard that Dick Ford was like, and for those that don't know who that was, Channel 2 anchor for the longest time. And I've heard that he was kind of as close to a Walter Cronkite as you could get for St. Louis news, that he was a big stickler for making sure things were correct, always making sure that you're pronouncing things correctly. And so yeah, that was kind of his thing, was like making sure that the news is getting portrayed as accurately as possible, which again, very commendable.
Yeah, but when it was time to party, oh my God, there was nobody more fun to be with than Dick. He'd get you laughing and he'd tell these stories, you know. And he started out in television in the early 50s when NBC was known as DuPont. It was something like, it was DuPont TV, all these original television stations, which no longer exist anymore. And I used to find that fascinating. The funniest story I have about Dick was, and this may be his superstition. You're getting closer to news time, and he would get into that mode and that game face. And it was around Christmas time, and some people came in. I guess it was the Salvation Army, and they hired a Santa Claus who was not Salvation Army because he was drunk. Okay. And the Santa was drunk, and he's out there, and the Salvation Army's playing their music. And the Santa sees Dick in the newsroom over there, and he comes running over to him. He's like, ho, 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 Dick Ford. Oh, and he's giving him hugs and everything. And all of a sudden, Dick pushes Santa away, and he goes, get the hell away from me. Can't you see we're trying to put a newscast on here? And Louis Manito, he's no longer with us. He was a producer, and he goes, ooh, Dick just ripped Santa a new one. But it was just the weirdest thing. It was like a scene out of The Office. But he was really concerned about the newscast, and this guy's running around, and you could tell he had a few, and he was a little bit out of place. But it was Santa Claus after all, you know.
Yep. Yeah. He didn't care. That's
Yep.
great. Well, how about for you? So I know you are kind of known, and I'll admit my mom did ask me when I told her I was going to have you on. She was a big fan of yours, and she said you need to work in talking about bow ties somehow with John Pertzborn. And I said I will do that. So, Mom, here you go. This is for you. Did you kind of became the guy here in St. Louis that wore a bow tie for the news all the time? Was did you want that to be your thing, or is that just kind of your style? What was the reasoning behind the bow ties?
I'm real cash. I don't like. I told my wife the other day I had to put on a suit. A neighbor invited us to his country club, and I'm like, oh man, I got to put on a suit. I don't like dressing up. I mean, I'm a plumber's kid. I wear jeans and a t-shirt, but I have beautiful clothing. I mean, I've got wonderful ties and bow ties, and the bow tie thing started sometime in the 2000s. Randy Naughton said, you should wear a bow tie. And I'm like, it's kind of like a calling card. She goes, for what? And I go, well, I mean, think about the people who wear bow ties. You've got Orville Redenbacher. You got Phil Nye, the science guy. You've got Paul Simon, who was a Democratic state senator from Illinois. You've got Malcolm X wore a bow tie. You've got conservatives. I said, I don't want somebody trying to label me. She goes, but you just mentioned people who are all over the spectrum. So how could they label you? And I go, that's good. I said, well, give me another reason. She goes, because they're hip again. You can rock the bow tie. You've got that face and that body. You can rock the bow tie. I said, okay, well, I'll get some. I didn't even know how to tie one. I did wear a clip-on once, and I was at a concert. I had to put on a tuxedo, and I put on the tuxedo and the clip-on tie, and this interior decorator named Alan came running up and goes, you're wearing a clip-on. Oh my God. And he starts playing with it. I'm like, dude, get away from me. What is your problem? He goes, you don't wear a clip-on. A man should learn how to tie a bow tie.
That's Dick Ford and Santa all over again.
Yeah. I'm like, just fun. And then the only other time I really wore this tuxedo we went to a restaurant in downtown St. Louis, which was one of our favorites, called Café de France. Marcel and Monique. Monique was from, I believe, Canada, and Marcel was from France. Wonderful French food. It was the haute cuisine French food in downtown St. Louis. And I'm wearing my tuxedo one night because we were going to go to the symphony. My wife loves that. And so I get up to use the bathroom. And I'm walking to the bathroom. This guy goes, waiter, could I? And I kept going. I come out and I'm going I'm going to avoid that table. Somebody else starts calling me over, waiter. And I'm looking around. All of a sudden I realize all the waiters are wearing the same outfit I'm wearing.
Oh no.
And I don't want to wear that. So then we move forward to 2006 or so. I went out and I bought some bow ties, and I struggled. I could not tie this thing. I could not figure it out until I started searching on the internet, and I went to a website on YouTube. All you have to do is go to YouTube and type in lucky bow tie, okay? And it will take this haberdashery down in, I think it's in Charlotte in the Carolinas. And these guys are probably dead now, but this guy showed how to tie a bow tie. And it was so simple that I said, oh my God, let me try that. Now I can only do it if I'm looking at myself, but I got so good at it, man. I was going to town, and I really got into these bow ties because nobody was really wearing them. I would find them in secondhand shops going back to the 40s. So I started wearing them from every decade. People started sending them in to me. One guy sent me one made out of human hair. I didn't really wear that. I kind of then I had one made out of mink. I had one made out of wood. I mean, people.
Wood?
Yeah. And what was his name? He started out as a sports reporter in the newspaper. Bob Bragg.
Okay. Yep.
Bob Bragg. Bob died, and his widow sent me like a huge box of his bow ties, and they were really nice, from Neiman Marcus, needless markup, as some people call it. Just some beautiful ones. So I got heavily into the bow tie, and I only wore them on Tuesdays.
That's true. Yeah, I noticed you didn't wear them every day. So where are they now? Are they just kind of taking up space in your closet?
Well, I mean, they're in another room.
Mm,
Yeah, I should have brought them in here, but I've been giving them out at charity auctions.
nice.
People, I did one auction in Florissant at Sacred Heart Academy for Monsignor Ulrich, and somebody from the archdiocese came, and I don't know where he got the money. I was told he's independently wealthy, but he spent like up to $5,000 for my bow tie.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, I could use that money.
There's your retirement money right there.
Yeah, $5,000. Maybe there's, and my wife's like, there's not many people are gonna spend $5,000, John. It's for charity. That's what they were doing it for. It's not because it's worth that much, because you wore it. I went, okay. I could be independently wealthy.
That's probably one of those moments where I've had humbling moments like that when I was in doing media work. Like, the story's not about you, the story's about what's going on that you're reporting on. And yeah, that they bought that bow tie for the charity, not because John Pertzborn wore it, unfortunately.
But if you ever go to Hendel's, with Florissant right across from that church, the owner there every year had been buying my bow ties at these auctions, and they've got a collection on display in their restaurant there, and it's like the only accomplishment in my life that I wish my parents were alive. I could take them to that restaurant. They could see my bow ties hanging on the wall.
That's awesome. So working in the media as long as you did, I think back of like baseball, there's a lot of times with, the pitcher, you're not supposed to talk to him on the day he's going to pitch. There's similar ones in hockey with the starting goalie. Is there anything like that in the media where it's like, maybe not John, but Tim or Randy or somebody's about to go on air? Don't ask them about this. Don't talk about that. Anything kind of odd like that, that's just kind of like a known commodity in the media world, but people not in the media have no idea is the thing.
Well, some of the things you're not supposed to do is like the women aren't supposed to wear those high heels that click, 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 and nothing would ever bother me but that. It's like, God, stop with the clicking.
So that's why you stopped wearing them.
Yeah, I don't wear the high heels anymore. I have a tendency to tap the pen, and it drives people crazy. You're not supposed to come into the studio on a tour when they're on the air because that can be distracting for some people. I like it. Hell, I'll invite them up on the set and make it part of the newscast. I'm not big into planned spontaneity. I just like spontaneity. And in television, they're into planned spontaneity. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then we'll do this. And I'm like, well, that's acting. I don't want to act.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make it a happening, make it real. But so you can't do it your way. You have to play along with others. So I had to learn how to do all of this, but it was foreign to me.
Yeah, I bet. So did that drive other people crazy when you would invite people on a tour on set while the news cameras are rolling?
Yes. Yeah. You'd hear about it later. And it's like, why are you so upset about this? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
who cares? It's fun. That's the way
Or,
I see it.
or if I said something like, everybody like it, there's one individual who always say, everybody, John, everybody. It's a colloquialism, it's a way of saying things.
Yep.
There are a lot of people who are pretty uptight.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. You mentioned the pen clicking. I
Yeah.
used to work with a gentleman in an office, and he was the type of guy that he would tap his foot. I mean, and this is going to be annoying, but it's intentional. It would just be, I mean, constant, and it was just Ryan, dude, and he'd just look at me and be like, "What?" And I'm like, I am a very tolerant person, but dude, you've been tapping your foot like crazy for 5 minutes. Okay, I'll stop. 2 minutes later, he'd start again. He wouldn't even realize he was doing it. And but although because of that, it morphed into something. So we were in a room of about 20 to 25 people, and he would put on the most obnoxious YouTube video. So I'm not sure if you're aware, there is a thing on YouTube. They are 10-hour loops, and it's literally sometimes they take like a song, like one of them was a s- up in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high. Yeah, that song. What's going on? Um, and but they like sped it up, and like the singer had this really high pitched voice, and he would just play it, and it was a 10-hour loop. And so we would just sit there, and I knew he was doing it because the minute I'd hear it, I'm like, oh, he put on the 10-hour loop. And
Right.
we would sit there and see how long it took for somebody else to completely lose it. And one time we got to about 8.5 minutes. And imagine that you're just sitting there working and you're just hearing this step in the morning and I'll step outside. And you're just like, and finally this guy stands up and he's like, who the hell is doing this? Knock it off. Oh my God, this song is so obnoxious. I hear it in my sleep.
Yeah.
Like, loses it. And my buddy Ryan just starts laughing. He's like, gotcha. And he would just like do that almost daily with a different song. And it was just, people started catching on that he was doing it on purpose, but it still drove them nuts, which was always hilarious.
I love the newsroom or any kind of office atmosphere where you start doing something and it's going to drive somebody crazy. We would make like noises like oh, just everybody'd look around, and there was there was a producer in the corner named Peggy, and she'd say, "Who's ever doing that? Stop it!"
You sound like the lady from Monsters Inc., the one that Mike Wazowski.
Got it down. So we'd wait like maybe 3 minutes and do it again. And she'd come over to me and she'd be standing there and she'd look at me and she'd go, Pertzborn, is that you? I go, I'm trying to work here. You're in my space. What's going on? So Chris Hayes and I would play a lot of pranks like that. We had a lot of fun. He's real serious on the air, but just a hoot behind the scenes.
Yep. And I'm all about the pranks. We did one where we were messing with the heat and the cold, which obviously, the business managers did not like when we did stuff like that. But we would turn it up really hot. And so it'd be, it was probably 80 degrees outside and it would be like 91 inside before finally somebody would say, why is this heat at 91? And then they turn it down. 2 hours later, we turn it down to like 60. And finally somebody's like, okay, somebody's messing with us, right? And it's like, man, like come on, you know who it is. It's the same culprits that did the craziness with the song.
Yeah, and that was in the studio. There was a thermostat out by the door of Fox 2 near the studio, and it would get so hot in there. I would go over and just turn it down, And Angela Huddy was always cold, And she's like, it's cold in here. And so it was constantly going back and forth to the point where the engineers had to put up a sign. Nobody is allowed to touch this. We have it all set so it never changes. People just kept doing it. I'm sure it's still going on to this day. And if you look at it when you're anchoring the news, the men are wearing suits. You got layers, you got a t-shirt, you got your shirt, you got your suit coat. The women are wearing basically nothing. Well, they're wearing something, but
right. Sounds like an interesting newsroom.
Yeah. Our eyes on the tube.
That's funny. So another kind of superstition that comes to mind for me is, and you may remember him, there was a St. Louis Cardinal that wore and obviously superstitions make me think of sports, but Steve Klein was a pitcher for the Cardinals. And he, for those that don't know, never washed his Cardinals hat. And it looked hideous. I mean, it looked like a hat that was worn every day because it was, and it was never washed. And I've read stories from people, and even actually I talked to media members that went in the locker room and talked to them. It got to a point where you could smell the hat. It was so gross.
I was going to say it had so many creatures living in it, these microscopic, it could walk on its own.
Yeah, I'd get up and walk right out of the locker room. We were like, well, there goes Klein's hat. But yeah, it's so like, for me, I've got again a hockey teammate. Luckily to stop playing, it was disgusting. He never washed his socks. And I'm not talking hockey socks. I mean the skate socks, the socks that you wore inside your skates. And it got to a point where we were like, dude, seriously, you got to wash those socks. And he wouldn't wash them. So we ended up taking them and throwing them in the garbage and replaced his socks.
Well, you can,
and he literally grabbed the socks out, and we even had him like thrown in there, hoping that he, not realize it. Of course, he picks them up. These aren't my socks. Where's my socks, guys? What'd you guys do with my socks? And we're like, we threw them away last week after you took them off. Yeah. And he's like, he starts digging through the trash cans in the rink. We're like, dude, that was a week ago. Hopefully they have replaced the trash bags.
Just put some feces in his boot, his thing. He won't know the difference. So let me ask you this about hockey skates, because I started skating again. My daughter-in-law is a figure skater, so she brought me out to her rink, and I hadn't skated since 1965 when I was 5. Yeah, and I had a bad experience. Everybody in my family, they were great skaters, and so I put on a pair of rented hockey skates, and trying to think, Bauer skates, and one of them just kept going to the side. Now,
yeah,
why is that? Now, somebody told me, well, you got to really lace them up. And then somebody else said, you got to wear a size smaller than what you normally wear. And so I did that, and I had no problems. But hockey skates are easy to skate on.
Yeah. So that both are true. You hockey players. So for those that don't know, I don't want to say his name, but there was a professional athlete who got a lot of trouble because he was 6'6" and he wore a size 6 skate. And people used to give him trouble because it's like, you got tiny feet. And it's like, no, I'm literally just jamming my foot into this little tiny skate because I want them to be as tight as possible. And I do the same thing. I normally wear 10.5 shoes. My skates are 7.5 to 8s. And so you want them to be as small as possible because you want them to be on tight. You do want to lace them up real tight, but I will tell you, wearing rental skates, there's a good chance that what happened was those skates are old. They don't get replaced. They don't get repaired. You probably had some bad padding on that right foot. Yeah. So that's probably what was causing it to buckle as you were skating. So my suggestion to you is I know you probably don't want to go spend $700 on brand
No,
new skates.
been
Go
100.
to like, yeah, go to like Play It Again Sports out here in St. Louis. We got a couple different locations. Pick up a used pair of skates, 50, $60, and just wear them around the house, break them into your foot, and then go out and skate on them, and it'll feel much more comfortable than rental skates.
So do you ski at all?
I have not, and that is on my bucket list. That is something I'm going to do this year.
So I haven't done that in a long time, and I went out to Colorado and I bought a pair of ski boots and some new skis. And I was told that the boot has to be tight. Your feet should just wiggle a little bit. You wear real thin socks. But on my left foot, I've got a black toenail now. And I'd show you, but it would really disgust many people watching. And I don't want to do that. It's not my goal here.
No, that's mine.
I don't, yeah, that's your, I don't want to show my, but this has been going on since November. It hasn't changed. Now, the last time this happened was when I was running marathons. I was running all these marathons, and my toenail would turn black, and then eventually it would fall off. So I said, well, this toenail off, it hasn't fallen off. And I'm going skiing again next month. And I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong? And I think it's because I'm pressing my big toe. It's like a nervous tick on the top of the boot, and it's causing so much pressure. But
I wonder if you tape some like gauze at the top of your toe.
that, yeah, that's a good idea. On the same length there. Do you think that'd be okay?
I think so. You'd probably be fine. I would tape it on the inside of your sock because that less chance it'll wiggle off. But
Good idea. Yeah, and then put the sock on over that.
yep,
Okay.
yep, that would be my suggestion. But I don't want to tell you that and have you be like, so my toe fell off.
I was pondering the reason for that, and it's Jeff's reason. Jeff caused that.
I went on that stupid podcast and I lost my toe.
I'd have to hire Chet Cleveland to sue you.
There you go.
He's retired. He loves suing people now.
Well, good. That's good. I'm glad somebody loves doing that.
Yeah. Well, you got to love what you do. There was this kid. My neighbor hadn't raked their gumballs up and their leaves. They were still there as of a week ago. And they sent their kid out there because I'm out there every day picking up gumball. I'm pristine lawn. And the kid's out there. What are you doing here? He goes, oh, I'm being punished. I played video games until midnight. I'm not supposed to do that. And I said, so you're being punished? I said, no, this is wrong. Work should not be a punishment because then you create this negative view of work the rest of your life. Work should be fun. So I'm out there, look at how much fun we're having. He's looking at me like I'm nuts. I'm like, great. I said, work smarter, not harder. So I went and I got him a tarp and I said, just rake everything on here and then take it to the back. So then I look at him 20 minutes later. He's carrying these massive bags over his shoulder like Santa Claus. I'm like, no, drag it. It's a tarp. Drag it. He goes, well, now you tell me. He had been doing this for like 3 hours. The kid was beat. But I'm thinking, I want him to have a clean lawn all the time. And if he looks at it as punishment, it's never going to happen.
That's true.
Right?
I know for a fact that my dad used mowing the lawn as a punishment. And so none of my family likes to mow lawns. And I think that's why.
What's your father do for a living?
He was working for Amoco Oil back in the day. That was his big job. He was a project and jobber engineer is what he did.
Oh, so he didn't own the oil well. He's like Jed Clampett.
Yeah. No, he was not Jed Clampett, although that would have been awesome.
Yeah. So my wife was in the oil industry for a while.
Okay. Sounds
Yeah,
like she's lived a lot of lives too. You told me she also worked in the pet industry.
Well, yeah, she worked at Ralston when it was Ralston Purina.
Yep.
But when she was in college, she was the first female roughneck in Oklahoma. Worked on an oil rig.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
wow.
Late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, which is pretty cool. I saw a picture one day, and she didn't tell me. I was going through pictures, and I go, "What the hell's this?" It was like some scrawny dude wearing overalls, just covered in oil. She goes, "That's me." I'm like, "Get out of here! That's you."
Scrawny dude, you say?
Yeah, working with all those cowboys. They didn't like it.
Oh, I bet that was a real culture shock for them.
Yeah, she said they hazed her. They threw bugs in her coffee, and they throw her in the oil pit, and then finally listen, I'm little. I got little arms. I can do things you can't do. And they're like, what? She goes, I can reach in there into that chain and get that piece out that you can't get, that you're always trying to. And she did it. And they're like, whoa. So, accentuate the positive.
That is true, and it's like you say. I mean, you kind of find the happiness in work, and you're like, oh, having this person that can do these things that we can't do because she's smaller, that is a benefit to us, and it's going to make us enjoy our jobs a little better.
She's not stronger, but she's smaller. So how do we use that? It's kind of like when in New York City at the turn of the century, 1900s, when they were starting to first run cables through pipes and things to wire everything, they'd attach them to ferrets. They'd have them running through, pulling these wires through the pipes. That's how they wired New York City, using little creatures.
That is pretty smart, actually. That's I never would have thought to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, John, this has been awesome. Having you on has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. I think our audience is going to enjoy it as well. And I know, again, at the very least, my mom is going to be happy to hear me talking to you. So shout out to Mary. We got John on, Mom. So I know you're happy about that. But again, thank you very much.
Your mother. I mean, that's the only reason.
That's right. Yep. That's what I do. That's why I do this. I just want to make Mom happy.
Yeah. Changed my life. Thank you.
There you go. John, since 1998 on the air here in St. Louis, 43 years, and now you get to finally enjoy your retirement.
On the air here in St. Louis since 1986.
Oh, my. So
Yeah,
it was 98 Fox 2?
98 was Fox 2. Before that at KSDK. I sleep in formaldehyde. That's how I keep my youthful look.
Oh, well, there you go. I'll keep that in mind. Folks, make sure you do the same.
Give it a try.
There you go. John, thank you very much for coming on. This has been a blast. And, we'll have to have you on again sometime if you want to try a different topic.
Okay. Thanks, John. Sorry, I haven't been looking at you. I see you over there now.
I'm right here.
I can almost touch you.
That's not that kind of show. The Pondcast, conversations that go nowhere. Produced by Jeff Ponder. Executive produced by Jeff Ponder. Music by Loud C. Smith. Talent booking by Jeff Ponder. Engineering and mixing by Jeff Ponder. A special thanks goes out to Swim Caps for making bald people feel safe at the pool. Remember to rate and review the Pondcast, conversations that go nowhere, just because you're a good person. If you're a bad person, you can get some heaven points by rating and reviewing. It's a win-win. Follow the Pondcast on all social media channels with the profile handle @PondcastConvos. Thanks for listening.